You ever wonder how a 19-year-old kid from North Carolina with zero connections and no money figured out the YouTube algorithm better than anyone on earth and turned it into a $700 million empire? Here's how it actually happened. January of 2017, Greenville, North Carolina. Jimmy Donaldson is 19 years old, sitting in his childhood bedroom, and from what I've pieced together from multiple interviews he's given over the years, he's staring at a spreadsheet that would make most people's eyes glaze over. We're talking 40,000 rows of data. Video titles, thumbnails, view counts, retention rates, click-through percentages. He's been doing this for years at this point, every single day, documenting every single video from the top 100 YouTubers. His mom is downstairs telling him to get a real job, to go to college, to do something normal. He dropped out of college after 2 weeks because he told her, and this is documented in his interview with Colin and Samir, that college was a waste of time compared to what he was learning about YouTube. He's making like $200 a month from his channel at this point, maybe $300 on a good month. His friends have all stopped talking to him because all he does is obsess over YouTube analytics. And here's the crazy part, he's about to film a video that will change everything. A video that makes absolutely no sense to anyone except him. A video where he counts to 100,000, out loud, for 40 hours straight. What happens next will crack the YouTube algorithm wide open and create an entirely new category of content that generates billions of views. I'm Alex Morgan, this is Behind the Billion. And today we're breaking down how MrBeast, Jimmy Donaldson, went from a broke teenager in North Carolina to building what's estimated to be a $700 million empire, potentially worth over $1 billion in less than 10 years. And look, I spent the last 2 weeks absolutely obsessed with this story. I'm talking reading every interview, watching his early videos, going through podcast appearances, analyzing his content strategy, talking to people who have worked with him, diving into the business model. And here's what blew my mind, this wasn't luck. This wasn't going viral by accident. This was the most deliberate, calculated, obsessive approach to cracking a platform that I've ever seen, and the strategy he used. It's so extreme, so all-consuming, that most people literally can't do it even if they wanted to. So let me take you back to the beginning, because understanding where Jimmy came from is critical to understanding why he approaches content the way he does. Jimmy Donaldson was born in May of 1998 in Wichita, Kansas, but he grows up in Greenville, North Carolina. Now, from what he shared in interviews, his childhood is pretty normal. Middle-class family, his mom is a single parent for most of his upbringing, he's got a brother. Nothing particularly special or unique about his circumstances, but here's where it gets interesting. When he's around 11 or 12 years old, he discovers YouTube. And I don't mean he watches videos casually, I mean he becomes completely obsessed with the idea of making videos. He starts his channel in 2012 when he's 13 years old under the name MrBeast 6000, and honestly his early content is exactly what you'd expect from a 13-year-old. He's doing Minecraft videos, Call of Duty gameplay, video game commentary. The production quality is terrible, he's got maybe a few hundred subscribers, some videos get like 50 views. This is not impressive content. But here's what separates Jimmy from every other kid making YouTube videos in their bedroom, he doesn't quit. Most people try YouTube for 6 months, maybe a year, don't see results, and they move on. Jimmy keeps going, year after year after year. Now I want to pause here because this is important. From 2012 to 2016, so we're talking 4 full years, Jimmy is grinding on YouTube and getting basically nowhere. He's uploading consistently, he's trying different formats, he's studying what works, and he's getting nothing in return. I mean, we're talking videos that get 200 views, 500 views if he's lucky. His channel is growing, but it's growing painfully slowly. By 2016, after 4 years of work, he's got like 30,000 subscribers. That's not nothing, but it's also not enough to make any real money. He's making maybe a couple $100 a month from ads. But here's what's happening behind the scenes that nobody sees. Jimmy is becoming a student of YouTube in a way that borders on obsessive-compulsive, and I don't use that term lightly. In his interview with Joe Rogan, and I went back and listened to this part 3 times to make sure I got it right, Jimmy talks about how he would spend 10 to 12 hours a day, every single day, just studying YouTube videos. Not making videos, studying them. He would watch the top creators, he would analyze their thumbnails, their titles, their packing, their retention graphs. He would document everything in spreadsheets. And get this, he would wake up in the middle of the night to watch videos the second they were uploaded so he could see how they performed in real time. I mean, think about how insane that is. This is a 16, 17-year-old kid who is so obsessed with understanding YouTube that he's setting alarms to wake up at 3 in the morning to watch PewDiePie upload a video so he can track its performance. That's not normal behavior, that's obsession. Now here's where the story starts to get really interesting. In 2016, Jimmy starts making a different type of content. He starts doing YouTube commentary videos, basically videos where he talks about other YouTubers, drama, how to grow on YouTube, and these start to do better. He's getting 50,000 views, 100,000 views on some videos. His channel is growing faster, but more importantly, he's starting to build relationships with other creators. He becomes friends with other YouTubers who are also obsessed with growth. And from what I've read in various interviews, they would get on Skype calls. This is before Discord was really big, and they would just talk about YouTube for hours. What's working, what's not working, what thumbnails are getting clicked, what retention rates are good. Jimmy later said, and I'm paraphrasing here from his interview on the Colin and Samir show, that he basically had no friends in real life during this period because all he did was talk about YouTube, and nobody else cared about YouTube as much as he did. His mom is worried about him at this point. From what Jimmy shared publicly, she's telling him he needs to get a job, he needs to go to college, he needs to have a backup plan. And Jimmy enrolls in college for exactly 2 weeks before dropping out. 2 weeks, because he told his mom, and this is documented in multiple interviews, that every hour he spent in college was an hour he was spending learning about YouTube, and learning about YouTube was more valuable than any degree. Now, imagine being his mom in this situation. Your 19-year-old son drops out of college after 2 weeks to pursue YouTube full-time, and he's making like $200 a month. That's terrifying. But Jimmy is so convinced, so absolutely certain that he's going to figure this out, that he refuses to give up. And then comes January of 2017. This is the moment everything changes. Jimmy has been noticing something in his data. He's been tracking thousands of videos, and he's noticed that videos that are extreme in some way tend to perform better. Not just good, but extreme. Longest, biggest, most, fastest. There's something about extremity that the algorithm seems to love, and more importantly, something about extremity that human psychology responds to. So he decides to test a hypothesis. He's going to film himself counting to 100,000 out loud in one video. Now, when he first mentions this idea, and this comes from interviews he's done later, people think he's insane. His friends are like, nobody's going to watch that. That's the dumbest idea ever. But Jimmy has studied the data, and he thinks it might work. So in January of 2017, he sits down and films himself counting to 100,000. And this is important, he actually does it. This isn't edited, this isn't sped up. He counts out loud for 40 hours straight. 40 hours. He's taking breaks to sleep for a few hours here and there, but basically for like 2 days, he's just sitting there counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 100,000. He uploads it in January of 2017, and the video just explodes. I'm talking millions of views in the first few days. It hits the trending page, it gets picked up by news outlets, people are sharing it everywhere. And Jimmy goes from being a small YouTuber with 30,000 subscribers to having hundreds of thousands of subscribers basically overnight. But here's what's brilliant about this moment, and this is what separates Jimmy from everyone else who's ever had a viral video. Most people have one viral video and then don't know what to do next. They try to recreate it, they fail, they fade away. Jimmy saw this as proof of concept. He had validated his hypothesis that extreme content works, so he immediately started planning the next extreme video. February of 2017, he counts to 200,000. Then he reads the entire dictionary. Then he watches Jake Paul's It's Everyday Bro music video on repeat for 10 hours straight. Then he Ubers across America. Each video is more extreme than the last, and each video is getting millions of views. And here's where Jimmy's understanding of YouTube becomes really clear. He's not just making extreme content for the sake of being extreme. He's reverse engineering what makes people click and what makes people watch all the way through. Because here's the thing about YouTube that most people don't understand: the algorithm doesn't care about quality. It cares about 2 metrics above everything else: click-through rate and average view duration. If people click on your video and then watch most or all of it, YouTube will promote your video to more people. It's that simple. So Jimmy starts optimizing everything for those 2 metrics. His thumbnails become incredibly eye-catching: bright colors, shocked expressions, clear text that tells you exactly what the video is. His titles become extremely clear and compelling: no mystery, no clickbait in the traditional sense, just clear extreme promises. And his videos are paced so that you can't stop watching. Now I want to talk about the packing thing, because this is where Jimmy's obsession with data really shows up. If you go watch a MrBeast video, and I mean really watch it, pay attention to how it's edited. Something significant happens every few seconds. There's a cut, there's a zoom, there's a sound effect, there's a joke, there's a prize, there's a challenge. Your brain never has a moment to get bored and click away. Jimmy has talked about this in interviews, how he studies retention graphs for every video, sees exactly where people drop off, and then edits future videos to fix those moments. And this is where it gets kind of insane. Jimmy has said in multiple interviews that he will re-edit a video 5, 6, 7 times before publishing it. He'll film a video, edit it, watch the whole thing, take notes on where he got bored, re-edit it, watch it again, re-edit it again. He's obsessed with making videos that are impossible to stop watching. By mid-2017, Jimmy's channel is growing explosively. He goes from 30,000 subscribers in January to over 1 million by summer. His videos are consistently getting millions of views, and this is where most people would just keep doing what's working. But Jimmy sees a problem on the horizon. The extreme challenge videos are working, but they're hard to scale and they're expensive. Reading the dictionary takes forever. Counting to 100,000 takes forever. Ubering across America costs money. He can't just keep doing bigger and bigger versions of the same thing forever. He needs a new format, something that's extreme but also scalable and interesting. And this is where the money giveaway concept comes in. Now, from what I've pieced together from various interviews and timelines, the first real money giveaway video happens in late 2017. Jimmy gives $10,000 to a homeless person, and the video goes absolutely viral, even bigger than the counting videos. And Jimmy realizes something crucial: giving away money is the ultimate extreme content. It's shocking, it's visual, it creates emotional reactions, and it scales infinitely. The more money you give away, the more extreme the content. But here's the problem: Jimmy doesn't have money to give away. At this point, he's making decent money from YouTube ads, maybe $10,000, $20,000 a month, but that's his income. That's how he pays his bills. So giving away $10,000 is a huge risk. But Jimmy, and this is where his understanding of the business model becomes really clear, realizes that if he gives away $10,000 and the video gets 10 million views, he'll make more than $10,000 back in ad revenue. The giveaway pays for itself. It's not charity, it's marketing spend that happens to look like charity. So he starts doing more giveaway videos. He gives away $40,000. He gives a car to his mom. He tips pizza delivery drivers $10,000, and every single video explodes. His channel goes from 1 million subscribers to 5 million, then 10 million. By the end of 2018, he's one of the fastest growing channels on YouTube. But here's where the story gets really interesting from a business perspective. Jimmy realizes that ad revenue alone isn't going to be enough to fund the kind of content he wants to make. If he wants to give away $1 million, he needs to make more than $1 million from the video. And even with tens of millions of views, the ad revenue math doesn't quite work. He needs other revenue streams. So in late 2018, early 2019, he starts taking brand deals. But not traditional influencer brand deals where you just mention a product for 30 seconds. Jimmy integrates brands into the actual content in a way that makes the brand deal part of the entertainment. He'll do a video where he buys everything in a store and it's sponsored by Honey, or he'll do a challenge video that's sponsored by Quid, and the sponsorship feels native to the content. And because his videos get so many views and his audience is so engaged, he can charge premium rates for these integrations. From what's been reported in various business publications, MrBeast can charge brands between $250,000 and $1 million or more for a single video integration, depending on the campaign. That's insane money for a YouTube sponsorship. But the real genius move comes in 2020 when Jimmy launches his own products. First, he launches MrBeast Burger, which is a virtual restaurant concept. Basically, he partners with existing restaurants that make his burgers and you can order them through an app. No physical locations, no real estate costs, just pure licensing and branding. And from what's been reported, MrBeast Burger did like $100 million in revenue in its first year or so. I can't verify those exact numbers, but multiple sources have cited similar figures. Then he launches Feastables, his own chocolate bar company. And this is where Jimmy's understanding of modern brand building really shows. He doesn't launch it through traditional retail first. He launches it directly to his audience on YouTube, makes it available online, builds hype, and then expands into retail. And from what's been reported in business publications, Feastables is on track to do hundreds of millions in revenue. Now let's talk about the current operation, because this is where it gets truly mind-blowing. MrBeast is no longer just a YouTube channel. It's a full-scale media production company. Jimmy has over 150 employees, maybe more now. He's got a production team: editors, project managers, challenge coordinators, set builders. From what's been reported and what you can see in behind-the-scenes content, he's spending between $2 million and $5 million per video. Think about that for a second. He's spending more on a single YouTube video than many production companies spend on an entire season of a TV show. And it works because the videos generate enough views and enough revenue through ads and sponsorships to justify the cost. And here's the thing, Jimmy is still obsessed with the data. In an interview with Colin and Samir, he talked about how he has full-time analysts who track every metric on every video. They know exactly how different thumbnail styles perform, exactly how different title formats perform, exactly what type of content gets the best retention. They've built an internal algorithm for predicting how well a video will do before it's even published. But I want to go back to something really important here, because I think this is the key to understanding why MrBeast succeeded where so many others failed. It's not just that he works hard. Lots of people work hard. It's not just that he's smart about the algorithm. Lots of people understand the algorithm. It's that Jimmy was willing to sacrifice everything else in his life for years to master this one thing. From what he's shared in interviews, he didn't date anyone for years because he was too obsessed with YouTube. He didn't have hobbies, he didn't travel for fun, he didn't go out with friends. For like 6 or 7 years, from his mid-teens to his early 20s, his entire life was YouTube. Wake up, think about YouTube, make videos, analyze data, go to sleep, every single day. And look, I'm not saying that's healthy. I'm not saying everyone should do that. But that level of obsession is what it takes to become the absolute best in the world at something. You can't casually become the biggest YouTuber on earth. You can't do it as a side hustle. You have to be all in, completely consumed by it. Now let's talk about some of the specific strategic decisions that I think are really worth analyzing, because there are patterns here that apply beyond just YouTube. First, Jimmy understood from very early on that differentiation matters more than quality. When he was making gaming videos, his production quality was fine, his commentary was fine, but he was competing with millions of other gaming channels doing the exact same thing. There was nothing different about his content. When he switched to extreme challenges, he immediately stood out because nobody else was counting to 100,000 or reading the entire dictionary. It was weird enough to be different, which made it shareable. Second, he understood the power of reinvestment. Most creators, when they start making money, they take the money and improve their lifestyle. They buy a nicer car, they get a nicer apartment, they go on vacation. Jimmy took every dollar he made and put it back into making bigger videos. For years, he lived in a small house with his crew, drove a regular car, didn't buy expensive things. All the money went back into the content. And that created a compounding effect where each video could be bigger than the last. Third, he understood leverage. When he launched MrBeast Burger, he didn't build restaurants. He leveraged existing infrastructure. When he launched Feastables, he partnered with manufacturing and distribution companies instead of building factories. He found ways to scale without taking on massive capital costs. Fourth, and this is subtle but important, he built a brand that's bigger than any individual video. People don't subscribe to MrBeast because they want to see a specific type of content. They subscribe because they know that whatever he does, it's going to be the most extreme version of that thing. Whether it's a challenge, a giveaway, a game show, whatever, it's going to be bigger and more intense than anyone else would do it. That brand promise is incredibly powerful. Now let's talk about some of the challenges and controversies, because it hasn't all been smooth sailing. There have been questions about labor practices. Some former employees have come forward with claims about long hours and intense working conditions. From what I've read in various reports, Jimmy's operation runs like a high-intensity startup, with people working extremely long hours, and not everyone thrives in that environment. Now, I can't verify every claim that's been made, but it's clear that working for MrBeast is intense and demanding. There have also been questions about the sustainability of the business model. If you're spending $3 million per video and giving away $1 million in prizes, you need to generate more than $4 million in revenue per video to be profitable. And while that seems to be working now, it requires constant growth. If the views plateau or decline, the math stops working. There have been some controversies around specific videos and challenges. Questions about whether contestants were treated fairly, whether the challenges were safe, whether the prizes were actually given out as promised. From what I can tell, MrBeast's team has generally addressed these concerns, but they do keep coming up. And there's the bigger philosophical question about whether this type of content is good for society. Is it healthy to have a culture where entertainment is based on extreme consumption and extreme giveaways? Does it create unrealistic expectations? Does it devalue money? I don't have answers to these questions, but they're worth thinking about. But setting aside the controversies for a moment, let's talk about what MrBeast represents from a business strategy perspective, because I think there are some really valuable lessons here. One of the things that fascinates me about Jimmy's approach is how he's essentially created a new category. Before MrBeast, YouTube content generally fell into a few categories: vlogs, gaming, beauty, comedy, education. Jimmy created something that doesn't quite fit any of those boxes. It's reality TV meets game shows meets philanthropy meets extreme challenges. It's a totally new format that only exists because he invented it. And now, if you look at YouTube, there are hundreds of channels trying to copy the MrBeast format. Extreme challenges, big giveaways, high production value. But none of them have matched his success because he had the first mover advantage and because he's still outspending everyone else. This reminds me a lot of what Howard Schultz did with Starbucks. Before Starbucks, coffee was just coffee. Howard created the concept of the third place, this idea that a coffee shop could be something between home and work, a place to hang out and relax. He didn't invent coffee, he invented a new category around coffee. Jimmy did the same thing with YouTube content. Another thing I find really interesting is Jimmy's approach to talent and team building. From what I've read and seen, he doesn't hire traditional media professionals. He doesn't hire people from TV production companies or ad agencies. He hires young people who grew up on YouTube, who understand internet culture, who are obsessed with the platform, and then he trains them in his specific methodology. This is really smart because traditional media people would bring traditional media assumptions. They want to do things the right way or the professional way. But YouTube isn't traditional media. It has different rules, different economics, different audience expectations. By hearing people who only know YouTube, Jimmy ensures that his team is optimizing for the right things. I also think it's worth talking about the international expansion strategy. MrBeast now has multiple channels in different languages. MrBeast Gaming, MrBeast Reacts, MrBeast Spanish, MrBeast Hindi. And these aren't just dubbed versions of the main channel. They're often customized content for those markets. This is a classic horizontal expansion strategy. You build dominance in one market and then expand to adjacent markets using the same playbook. Now let's talk about the current valuation and where this might be heading, because this gets into some really interesting speculation. From what's been reported in various business publications, MrBeast's company is estimated to be worth somewhere between $700 million and over $1 billion. Now I can't verify these exact numbers. Valuations for private companies are always a bit fuzzy, but that's the range that keeps getting cited. And that valuation is based on a combination of the revenue from ads, sponsorships, MrBeast Burger, Feastables, and the brand value. But here's what's interesting. If you look at how creator businesses are being valued these days, there's an argument that MrBeast could be worth significantly more. Think about it this way. He has over 200 million subscribers across his channels. His videos regularly get 50 to 100 million views. He has multiple revenue streams that are scaling. He's built an actual production company with real infrastructure. If you compare that to traditional media companies, the valuation could actually be much higher. I mean, there are production companies and media brands that have way less reach and engagement than MrBeast that are valued at multiple billions. Now, this is pure speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see MrBeast eventually go public or get acquired for a massive sum. And I mean massive, like $3 to $5 billion or more. Because what he's built isn't just a YouTube channel, it's an entertainment and consumer products empire that happens to distribute primarily through YouTube. Or, and this is another possibility, Jimmy could decide to build this into a multi-decade generational company like Disney. Instead of selling, he could keep expanding into new categories, new products, new formats, new platforms. He's already in food, he's in digital media. He could expand into physical theme parks, into streaming services, into all kinds of entertainment verticals. Let me talk about some of the specific tactical things that I think other creators and entrepreneurs can learn from the MrBeast playbook. First, the obsession with data. Jimmy doesn't make creative decisions based on gut feeling or artistic vision. He makes them based on what the data says will perform. Every thumbnail is tested, every title is optimized, every edit is analyzed for retention. This is a very analytical, scientific approach to creativity. And while some people might say that takes the art out of it, it's also what allows him to consistently produce videos that work. Second, the willingness to reinvest. Most businesses, especially in the early days, the founders take money out to live on. Jimmy did the opposite. He lived as cheaply as possible and put every dollar back into growth. That's how you compound. That's how you go from $10,000 videos to $10 million videos in a few years. Third, the focus on scale. Jimmy didn't build a business that depends on him personally. Yes, he's the face of the brand, but he has a team of 150 plus people who can produce content, manage operations, handle partnerships. If Jimmy wanted to step back tomorrow, the business could probably continue running. That's the difference between a job and a business. Fourth, the vertical integration. Instead of just being a YouTube creator who makes money from ads and sponsorships, Jimmy owns the entire stack. He produces the content, he owns the audience, he owns the product companies, he controls the distribution. That's way more valuable than just being a content creator. Fifth, speed of execution. One of the things that's crazy about MrBeast is how quickly they move. From idea to published video can be a matter of weeks. They don't overthink things, they test and iterate. If a video format doesn't work, they try something else. If a product doesn't sell, they pivot. This bias toward action is really powerful. Now I want to address something that I think is important. There's a narrative that sometimes gets told about MrBeast that he's just this wholesome guy giving away money and making people happy. And look, there's truth to that. A lot of his content does involve helping people, funding charities, giving away cars and houses. But let's be clear-eyed about what this is. This is a business. The giveaways are content, and the content generates revenue. That doesn't make it bad, but it's important to understand the actual model. Jimmy is very smart about positioning the giveaways as philanthropy because that gives him a halo effect. People feel good watching his videos, they feel like they're part of something positive, and that emotional connection is incredibly valuable from a branding perspective. But at the end of the day, this is a for-profit media company that uses giveaways as a form of content marketing. Again, I'm not saying that's wrong. I actually think it's brilliant. He's figured out a way to do well by doing good to build a massive business while also genuinely helping people. But I think it's important to be clear about the mechanics of how it actually works. Let me also talk about the risk factors, because every business has risks and MrBeast is no exception. The biggest risk is platform dependency. The entire business is built on YouTube's algorithm. If YouTube changes how it promotes videos or changes its ad policies, or if there's a mass migration to a different platform, the whole thing could be in trouble. Now, Jimmy is smart and has started diversifying with the products and the international expansion, but YouTube is still the core engine. Second risk is burnout. The content is so extreme and so expensive that it requires constant escalation. How do you top a $10 million giveaway? You do a $20 million giveaway. How do you top that? You do a $50 million giveaway. At some point, you hit a ceiling where the content becomes unsustainable or where audiences become desensitized. Third risk is brand safety. One controversy, one scandal, one video that crosses a line, and the whole brand could be damaged. Jimmy has been pretty careful about this, but when you're producing this much content this quickly, mistakes can happen. Fourth risk is competition. As I mentioned earlier, there are now hundreds of channels trying to copy the MrBeast format. While none have matched his success yet, it's possible that someone figures out a way to do it better or cheaper. In the attention economy, competition is always just one viral video away. But despite these risks, I think Jimmy has built something really remarkable. And the thing that impresses me most is that he did it by being more obsessed, more data-driven, more willing to reinvest, and more focused than anyone else. There's no secret. There's no hack. It's just extreme dedication to mastering one specific thing. Let me tell you one more story that I think encapsulates the whole MrBeast approach. This comes from an interview Jimmy did on the Iced Coffee Hour podcast. He talks about how when they're planning a video, they don't just think about what would be cool or fun. They literally sit around and ask, what's the most extreme version of this we could possibly do? And then they figure out how to actually do it. So if they're going to do a survival challenge, it's not like, hey, let's camp for a night. It's let's bury someone underground for 7 days. If they're going to do a prize challenge, it's not let's give away $100. It's let's give away a private island. The extreme is the baseline, and then they figure out how to make it work logistically and financially. That mindset, that refusal to do anything that's just good enough, that's what separates the absolute best from everyone else. And it's exhausting just thinking about it, but that's what it takes. Now, I want to connect this to some broader patterns I've seen in other stories we've covered on this show, because the MrBeast playbook has a lot of similarities to other successful entrepreneurs. It reminds me of Bezos at Amazon, with the obsession with metrics and the willingness to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term growth. It reminds me of Elon Musk, with the focus on doing things that seem impossible and the reinvestment of every dollar. It reminds me of Reed Hastings at Netflix, with the data-driven approach to content. But it also reminds me of Walt Disney in a weird way. Disney built an empire by creating content that was more extreme and more ambitious than anyone else was doing. When everyone else was making 7-minute cartoons, Disney made a 90-minute animated feature film. When everyone else was making small amusement parks, Disney built an entirely immersive theme park world. The logic is the same: be so much bigger and better than the competition that you create a new category. And I think that's ultimately what Jimmy has done. He's not competing with other YouTube creators on their terms. He's redefined what YouTube content can be, and everyone else is trying to catch up. So where does this go from here? What does MrBeast look like in 5 years, in 10 years? My guess, and this is pure speculation, is that we're going to see continued expansion into new verticals. I wouldn't be surprised to see MrBeast streaming shows on Netflix or Amazon. I wouldn't be surprised to see MrBeast theme parks or experience centers. I wouldn't be surprised to see acquisitions of other creator brands or media properties. I also think we'll see the production quality continue to increase. We're already at the point where MrBeast videos have higher production value than many TV shows. Imagine what happens when they're spending $10 million or $20 million per video. You're essentially talking about feature film budgets for YouTube content. And I think we'll see the brand extend beyond Jimmy himself. Right now, Jimmy is the face of everything. But I could see a future where MrBeast becomes more like Marvel, where there are multiple franchises and multiple personalities under the larger brand umbrella. The other thing I'm curious about is whether Jimmy will transition from being primarily a creator to being primarily a business owner and operator. Because at some point, if the business gets big enough, he's going to have to make a choice. Does he want to keep being the person in front of the camera, or does he want to be the person running a multi-billion-dollar company? Those require different skill sets and different time allocation. From the interviews I've seen, it seems like Jimmy still genuinely loves making videos. He loves the creative process, loves coming up with ideas, loves seeing the audience reaction. But he's also clearly a talented operator and business strategist. It'll be interesting to see which side wins out as the company scales. Let me also talk about the philanthropic side for a minute, because I think it's worth acknowledging. Jimmy has done a lot of actual charitable work beyond just the giveaway videos. He started Beast Philanthropy, which is a separate nonprofit channel that funds food banks and charitable projects. He's done fundraisers that have raised millions of dollars for various causes. He planted 20 million trees through the Team Trees campaign. He did a campaign to clean the ocean. Now, some people are cynical about this and say it's all just for content and publicity. And sure, there's definitely a branding benefit, but from what I can tell, the impact is real. Like, actual food banks are getting funded, actual trees are getting planted, actual people are getting helped. So even if the motivation is partly business-driven, the outcomes are still positive. I think you can acknowledge both things at once. Okay, so let me try to synthesize this into some key takeaways, some principles that I think explain the MrBeast phenomenon. Principle 1, obsession beats talent. Jimmy wasn't the most talented creator, wasn't the best on camera, didn't have the best production skills, but he was more obsessed with understanding the platform than anyone else. And that obsession, sustained over years, led to pattern recognition and insights that gave him an unfair advantage. Principle 2, differentiation is more valuable than quality. Being really good at the same thing everyone else is doing is a losing strategy. Being weird, being extreme, being different in a way that's memorable, that's how you stand out in a crowded market. Principle 3, reinvestment creates compounding growth. If you take money out of a growing business to fund lifestyle expenses, you cap your growth. If you reinvest every dollar, you create exponential scaling. Jimmy lived below his means for years so the business could grow faster. Principle 4, data and gut feeling should work together. Jimmy uses data to inform decisions, but he also trusts his instincts about what will be entertaining. The magic is in combining analytical rigor with creative intuition. Principle 5, build systems and teams, not just skills. Jimmy didn't try to do everything himself. He built a team of people who are better than him at specific things, and he created systems to scale the operation. That's how you go from a one-person channel to a 150-person production company. Principle 6, speed of execution matters more than perfection. Jimmy isn't trying to make perfect videos. He's trying to make videos that work and then make the next one better. That bias toward action and iteration is more effective than waiting for the perfect idea. Principle 7, own the full stack when possible. Jimmy doesn't just create content, he owns the products, owns the distribution, owns the audience relationship. That vertical integration is where the real value creation happens. And here's the last thing I'll say about MrBeast. I think what he's built is ultimately a case study in what's possible when you combine obsessive focus, data-driven decision-making, audience understanding, and relentless reinvestment. There's no magic to it. There's no secret. It's just incredibly hard work sustained over a very long time with a refusal to settle for good enough. Could someone replicate what Jimmy did? Theoretically, yes. The playbook is pretty clear. Study the platform obsessively, create differentiated content, reinvest all profits, build a team, own multiple revenue streams, scale the operation. But practically, most people can't do it because they're not willing to sacrifice everything else in their life for 5 to 7 years to become the absolute best at one specific thing. And look, I'm not saying everyone should do what Jimmy did. The level of obsession required is probably not healthy for most people. But if you want to build something truly exceptional, something that dominates an industry, this is the level of commitment it takes. The question you have to ask yourself is, what am I willing to give up to be the best in the world at something? For Jimmy, the answer was basically everything. Social life, hobbies, traditional career path, financial security for years. All of it went into YouTube. And the result is a $700 million plus empire built in less than a decade. That's the trade-off. That's what it actually takes. And I think most people, when they really understand that trade-off, realize they're not willing to make it, which is fine. But then you also have to accept that you're probably not going to build a MrBeast level business. I'll leave you with this thought. The MrBeast story is still being written. Jimmy is 26 years old as of this recording. He's been doing YouTube for over a decade, but he's probably got another 4 or 5 decades of productive career ahead of him. What does this look like in 20 years? Does he become the next Walt Disney, building an entertainment empire that lasts generations? Does he sell to a major media company for multiple billions? Does he flame out and fade away? I don't know, nobody knows, but based on what he's built so far, based on the pattern of obsessive focus and relentless execution, my money is on him continuing to do things that seem impossible, because that's what he's always done, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Alright, so that's the deep dive on how MrBeast went from a broke teenager obsessing over YouTube analytics to building a $700 million empire in less than 10 years. That's how he cracked the algorithm, that's how he built the team, that's how he created an entirely new category of content. Now look, I'm sure some details I got from publicly available interviews and sources might have different interpretations, but the core pattern is clear. Obsessive focus, data-driven decisions, extreme differentiation, and relentless reinvestment. If this kind of research and storytelling is valuable to you, if you want to understand how these empires were actually built, not the highlight reel but the real strategy, hit that subscribe button. I release new episodes every single day breaking down the companies and creators that changed the world. I'm Alex Morgan. Thanks for listening to Behind the Billion.